Hello, everybody. It's Cornell here from the No Such Thing podcast. This is just a short little intro to say that the interview that you're about to hear was kind of cut short. We had terrible connection issues. I don't know whose end it was on. I think it was on my end. The main thing is we got the main encounter in, which is the encounter he told on Finding Bigfoot. But that's the main thing. I mean, most Bigfoot encounters last a few seconds, and some of these podcast hosts seem to make a 45-minute podcast out of it, you know, with all the philosophizing and analyzing what happened and what it is and stuff. So this is just the encounter itself and another short encounter. The short encounter, the second one, we just kept getting, dropped. And I tried to splice it all together, and the interview does end abruptly, but that's just because we just couldn't keep doing it, because it was every 3 minutes. It would just keep dropping. And I think Philip's still in the same area, and the same thing might happen again. So we're just going to run with what we have. And I'd like to thank Philip again for coming on the podcast, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
We know what you've come for, and now we're going to give it to you. You're listening to the No Such Thing podcast.
Hello, everybody. This is Cornell for the No Such Thing podcast. Thanks for joining me. Tonight we have Philip William Abernathy from New Jersey, and Philip is actually going to go over an encounter he had in the 80s while hunting down in the Pine Barrens. I think it's called the Pine Barrens. I'm sure he'll correct me. Anyway, so he was actually featured on Finding Bigfoot with Bobo and Matt Moneymaker and stuff, and he was on, I can't remember the actual episode, but quite a good experience, quite a scary experience actually. But he'll be joining me tonight, and big shout out to Bigfoot Canada, the Facebook page. They have, the moderator there, Elena, I think is how you pronounce it, has given me permission to ask a guest or two here and there if they would share their experience on my podcast, and it's one of my favorite Facebook pages. Some cool people on there. And anyway, so if you're listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe. That means a lot to me. It really helps. And of course, if you search any podcast platform, if you want to listen to audio only, you can just, search for No Such Thing podcast, and it'll come up on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all the podcast apps you can think of. The good thing about podcast apps to listen to audio is you can, if you're driving your car, you can navigate with a map and it'll keep playing in the background, whereas if you're not a premium member on YouTube, once you minimize YouTube or close it, the audio stops, unless you're a premium member, which you have to pay for. I just found that out actually. So you can find me on all of those platforms too, so head on over there and give me a nice review. So this should be a good one, folks, and thanks for joining me.
Cornell, how are you, buddy?
Hey, Philip, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Oh, great. Yeah, I was just setting everything up there. I've got to set up so much stuff and make sure that it's all working. I get stressed out doing it because the last time I did this, I forgot to set up one of my backup recording apps, because I've got like 3 different recording devices going just in case one fails. So
Right.
these things happen. So listen, Philip, thanks for joining me. Great to have you on here.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So I found you. I just did a short introduction and give the Bigfoot Canada page a shout out, because I've had quite good success on that site. There's a lot of cool people on there.
Right on.
Yeah, you know,
it's a pretty good site. I just joined it myself, actually, that page.
Yeah, you know what some of these Facebook pages can be like? It can be a lot of woo on there and stuff. You know what I mean? And a lot of bickering. I can't believe there's infighting in a Bigfoot community. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, everybody's got an opinion.
I know, like to argue about something that nobody really has a clue about is
right. You don't even have a type specimen. If we had a type specimen, then you could have a valid argument, but we don't. So
exactly,
it's all conjecture.
So, Philip, you were on Finding Bigfoot, and anybody across the pond might not know about that, but that's one of the biggest shows here for, like a reality TV show with Bobo Fay and Matt Moneymaker, and what's the other guy's name?
Cliff Arkman and Renee, I forget her name.
Now, how did you, just for the audience, could you tell me what episode and season that was? Because I know we had a bit of confusion over that.
Yeah, I believe it was season 5, episode 11. I'm 99% sure. Like, I got my information on it. I didn't even see the episode for months after it came out. I think it was actually the next season by the time I got to see it.
Oh, really?
But, yeah. I'm 99% sure it's season 5, episode 11. It's called Bigfoot in the Pines.
Now, it's the Pine Barrens, right?
It is.
No,
Pine Barrens are 1 million square acres of pretty much untouched wilderness, except for the around the edges. Every year it gets encroached more because people gotta have a place to live. So,
let's talk about the Bigfoot or Finding Bigfoot thing, because I'm kind of fascinated. How does that work? I mean, how do you? First of all, how does that work, and then we'll talk about the experience.
I was contacted through one of the pages on Facebook. I'm not sure which one. It was so long ago, but I met up with the producer and her assistant, and they asked if I'd be interested in being on the show, and I said, of course, sure, I'll tell my story, and glad to. And we set it up, and then I think it was 3 days later that I had to meet with them in the town of Medford, I believe it was, or Shamong, or somewhere's up that way, and we met at the YMCA building there for the town meeting. And I went in and told my story to them, and next thing you know, 2 days later, we were out in Chatsworth filming the show.
So it made it look like that was the first time they'd ever met you. You know what I mean? You stand up in a town hall meeting. Now, when these town hall meetings, I notice, like, obviously everybody's there because they've heard of that it's going to be a Bigfoot thing. But
right.
like there's always like a dozen or so hands go up. There's usually a lot of people that come forward.
Right. Yeah, I guess like I said before that, I hadn't heard too many stories about Bigfoot. Before I had my sighting, I'd heard pretty much nothing. I saw the legend of Boggy Creek when I was a kid. It scared the shit out of me. Basically, just what you were seeing here on TV and $6 Million Man and all that. I'm 55 years old now, so.
Yeah, I made the mistake of watching Willow Creek. Have you seen that yet?
What'd you think?
Willow Creek. It's kind of like the Blair Witch Project, but Bigfoot.
Yeah. I don't believe I've ever seen Willow Creek myself, but I have heard of it. There's a bunch of movies that exist and all that.
That scared the hell out of me, and I watched it before I went down on my expedition to Oklahoma.
Yeah, of course, that was fun, I'm sure.
Yeah, and like Dave, who I went down to meet, he's a police officer, or he was, so he's not really afraid of anything. But he goes down there by himself in the middle of nowhere. I mean, this place is like you got to drive like 10 miles on a dirt road just to get there, and he just sleeps out in the open. And there is Bigfoot activity around there, and I'm like, how do you do this, Dave? I mean, it's pitch black, and I was even nervous just with both of us there, And he just he just lies on his back, and like the cowboys putting the cowboy hat over their face, and they just go to sleep. Yeah. That's kind of what he's like. And I'm like,
awesome.
No way could I do this,
No, yeah. So, I think when you come to the grips of having an encounter one of these things, and over the years I've had to try to think what exactly it was I saw. And it could have killed me at any minute if it wanted to. It was so fast. It moved so fast through the woods. Like, it could have killed me if it wanted to, and it didn't.
Well, let's get into... I want to touch on this first before we get on to your story, but did you, get to... Well, obviously you got to meet Bobo and Matt Moneymaker and stuff. Did you get to hang out with them much, or was it...
So we had dinner afterwards. We hung out they were out where we filmed the area. It was an old... gravel pit from back in the day, and they set up a lunch, and we had lunch, or I guess it was the late lunch dinner thing. It was in the evening. And we hung out and BS'd a little bit, and then I pretty much went on my way, got on my vehicle, and headed back to the house.
Yeah, Bobo seems the most relatable.
He was actually, out of all of them, Renee was the most relatable.
Oh, really?
Bobo was cool. Yeah, Bobo was cool. But she was like, listen, I'm going to say some things that you're not going to agree with. Just relax. It's TV. It's just how it works. I had to do this part of my show.
Right.
I said, okay, no problem.
Yeah, she's got to be the person she's got to be the Mulder or Scully. I can't remember which one it was, but she's got to be the one that.
Yeah, Scully. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got to. Oh, I don't know about this, and she's got to appear like the skeptic because they probably have to do that, but they don't want to look like they just say yes to everything. So she's probably that person. So
she is.
So we have this town hall meeting then in New Jersey, and so this is 1985, right? And you're hunting.
This was actually my encounter took place in 1985, November 1990 or 85 rather. And at the time, I was poaching deer. I shouldn't have been. I know that, but at the time, the money was tight, and it was maybe make a couple extra bucks, and I did what I had to do. I don't do that anymore. I don't even hunt anymore, in fact. So, but at the time, yes, I had pulled over. I had certain areas that I would go at night when I would jack deer, and this happened to hit this one spot that was pretty more remote than the rest of the spots I usually hit. And it was about 2:30 in the morning, and I parked my vehicle.
You're by yourself, right?
Yeah, I'm by myself.
Okay.
And it was pretty chilly that night, I remember, and it was a clear night. I do remember that. The moon was bright enough to see the ground in front of me, but not super well. I would say it was a half-phase moon, something in that range. So I parked my car about 300 or 400 yards back from where there's a low spot down the bottom of this. Where this place took place in just outside, just east of Warren Grove, New Jersey. It's in the middle of this what's called a dwarf forest. It's just an area that gets constantly hit by forest fires and lack of rain. And it's just the trees are stunted there. They're probably 12, 13 foot tall at the most. It's a beautiful area. I'll send you some pictures.
It looks like the Cape. When I looked at it, it looks like Martha's Vineyard or something. Those smaller pines, right?
Yep, it's exactly what it looks like. That's all the scrub pines. That's just, in fact, the Pine Barrens are the last surviving post-glacial dry air piney areas. That there's only a few areas in Long Island and Martha's Vineyard, a little bit, some spots on the Cape.
Oh,
but that's it.
Oh, that's why it looked really. So, how far inland is this? Because I saw sand everywhere. I'm like, why is there sand so far inland?
It's always, that's the Pine Barrens and nothing but white sugar sand and cedar streams and little cedar swamps and things like that. Like I said, it's very similar to what you would see up north, farther up north, Long Island especially, parts of Long Island and some parts of Mass, right in, like, towards the Cape, that part.
Yeah, it's very beautiful.
It's a really it's a beautiful area. It's got a lot of magic to it, and a lot of people don't realize that. They think it's Jersey, it's going to be dirty and nasty, and it's not. It's amazing there.
I have heard that Jersey has a very healthy bear population. It's like there's a lot of wilderness out there.
Yes, there is. There's tons of it, especially along the coastline. From you figure from where you get from central New Jersey south to the tip of Cape May, and that whole half of the southern half of the state is just dotted with small towns, but the rest of it's all farmland and woods and forests and things like that.
Okay, so
it's beautiful.
You park your truck. You're like 20 years old, right?
I was in '85. Yeah, I was exactly 20 years old.
Yeah, but I was 15. I just turned 50 this year. So
good.
You're so you park your and is this bow hunting or you've got a rifle?
No, I have a shotgun. Actually, it's a 12 gauge I was carrying and had a big mag light flashlight taped to the barrel.
Okay.
So I parked my vehicle, walked down this incline. The hill went down, and the road was just all sugar sand, like I said, and dwarf forest on both sides of me. But at the bottom of this hill, there was a ravine, so to speak, just a low area that had grass growing in it, about 4 foot tall, just orchard grass, we used to call it. And there was a piles of dirt. This is an Air Force range, the road that goes out to an Air Force range where they shoot A-10s, shoot their rounds out there all the time. They still do to this day. It's an awesome area. But anyway, Air Force had piles of dirt, maybe 8, 10 foot tall, 12 foot tall, some of them were, to keep people from driving into this low area and getting their truck stuck. So I climbed up on top of this hill real quiet, and I got in the prone position and laid down. And before I even put the flashlight on, I could see there were 3 deer in front of me, maybe 75, 80 feet in front of me. They were just doing their thing. So I clicked the flashlight on them and was getting ready to take a shot. And they weren't really looking at me. Normally when you hit a deer with a flashlight or a spotlight, the first thing they do is they look at you and it was a doe, a large doe, probably 130, 140 pound doe, a yearling and a smaller yearling, smaller doe or smaller fawn. So she's snorting and stomping her foot and blowing and looking towards the back of the pond. So I panned the flashlight off him and panned it towards the back of the pond, thinking maybe there's a person back there, game warden, who knows. So I shined a flashlight fast, and I didn't see anything. I got to a certain point. It was about 150 feet out into the grass. It looked like a red reflector that's sitting in the grass. And I panned past it, came back to it. By the time I panned back to it, looked like two reflectors. It looked like eyes, but they were big. They were huge, much bigger than our eyes. And I thought it was weird that I didn't notice there was two when I went past it. So now there were two, and they blinked, and then it groaned. This thing did like a exasperated person, the sound a person would make if he ruined their hunt. Because I do believe it was hunting these deer. So I can't say for sure, but that was the impression that I got, was this thing was hunting these deer, and I ruined its hunt, and it groaned like, oh.
And how far away? How far away are you? Sorry,
about 120 feet, I'd say, from it. Now there's a pond there. I guess it's filled in over time, or the ground sunk over time, or something. So without me putting on a pair of chest waders and walking out in the middle of it to get a pretty good idea as to exactly how far it was, I would say it was about 120, 130 feet, something like that. It was far enough away that it was close enough for me to make out detail, yet far enough away that I couldn't see everything. You know what I mean? It was still far enough away that it wasn't frightening at that point in time.
Right.
It was just something that was happening. So it proceeded to stand up out of the grass, got taller and taller and taller, and it put its right arm up in front of it to block the light from my flashlight on it. And I could see that from laying in the grass, its hair was wet, laying flat against it. It had a big pecker. It had a big male, he had a huge penis, man. When I tell you huge, it was huge.
Just flopping around.
It was just laying between its legs. I don't think I would have seen it for the hair, except for the fact that it was wet, and I could see its skin was gray color, dark gray. Its skin on its hands was dark gray. It had no whites to its eyes that I could see, but then again, like I said, it was pretty far away. It was far enough away that I couldn't really see definitively if it had whites to its eyes or not. I didn't see any.
Right.
It got to its full height. Its arm was up, and I'm still trying to take all this in. This happened in like a 10-second time frame, maybe 15 seconds, the longest. And it drops its arm, throws its arm back down its side, and it threw its chest out. When it did, it was huge, and I mean huge, and it screamed at me. And when it screamed at me, let me tell you, everybody says they have that fight or flight response, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I had none of that. I shut down. It was like the most bizarre thing. I'm a big, tough guy, strong guy, and I don't ever remember being that frightened. It was like an alien. It went from being maybe somebody in a ghillie suit, maybe a black bear, maybe somebody out there on maneuvers from the Air Force, to this thing that was just wasn't supposed to be there, man. And when it screamed at me, it projected itself. I don't know how else to put this without sounding weird, but it projected itself at me. I felt it in my chest, like somebody physically hit me in the chest.
Like infrasound, right?
Yeah, I can only assume that's what it was. And it shut me down. I wanted to just drop into a ball and curl up. And I had a 12 gauge in my hand with slugs in it that I could have, I don't know if you know what the damage a 12 gauge slug can do, but they're pretty devastating. I never even thought about shooting it. Not for a split second. Not at all. Not until after I had left the scene.
Now, what did the face look like? Did you get a look at the face?
Left and shot off. Yeah.
So we were
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying we were at the part where you closed down and you weren't thinking about taking a shot. That's where I lost you.
Okay. Well, that was, like I said, when it screamed at me, it projected itself at me. Infrasound, whatever it was, whatever they have the ability to do. I've heard lots of other stories since then. Who knows what they can do. But it shut me down. I physically just couldn't do anything. I had a 12 gauge in my hand with with slugs in it, and never once thought about shooting it. Never. Not until after I was already home and going through it in my head over and over again about what I just saw. Then I thought, well, why didn't you just take a shot at it? But at the same time, it was far too human looking for me to take a shot at it. It looked like a depiction of a Neanderthal man, basically, but much larger and much hairier than they depict them to be.
Now,
what
height do you think this thing is?
Say one more time.
What height were you thinking this thing was?
Between 7 and 8 foot, and it was almost as large as the trees when it entered the wood line, and they're a little taller because the water's there. So I'm going to say it was at least 7.5, 8 foot.
Yes.
It wasn't a massive 9 or 10 foot or anything like that. It was nothing like that. It was big. Well, it was bigger across its chest width-wise than any gorilla, anything I've ever seen in the fossil record. Maybe Gigantopithecus, maybe, but it was quite large, huge-chested, barrel-chested. Had no visible neck except for the front part of its neck and where its throat is. Its trapezoids just came right up to the bottoms of its ears. It was a massive, massive animal. Massive. I mean, again, I thought it was a joke. It was just so unreal to see this thing stand up and get bigger and bigger and bigger in front of me that I was just still trying to take it all in like a practical joke. What is this? Was it an alien? I didn't know what the hell it was I was saying. I still don't.
Now, did your mind go to Bigfoot right away, or did you?
No. Like I said, that was you never hear. And where I grew up in South Jersey, the big thing was the Jersey Devil, which this definitely wasn't. Now, I have never seen the Jersey Devil per se. I've heard lots of stories and some very credible stories about things that they can be described as the Jersey Devil, but I personally have never seen or heard anything like that. So that's a subject for a different time, I guess.
Yeah, well, they kept trying to make that. They kept trying to tie it to the Jersey Devil and stuff on the show, and I'm like,
yeah,
there's nothing. I don't think there's any correlation at all, right? It doesn't. They don't look alike or anything like that.
No, the Jersey Devil is basically a large deer-looking mammal with bat wings up its back. Nothing like Bigfoot or Sasquatch. To get back to the whole thing, I had never thought that there was Bigfoot in our area. Never in my area, South Jersey. I just never. It was never something that was brought up. Even looking after my incident and the events of the internet and going on to BFRO, because they were one of the few places where if you typed in Bigfoot sightings in New Jersey, you would either bring up Sussex County with Old Red Eye, or would talk about there were a few sightings in the Pines. Now, but before that, there were no books written about it. And now that I think about the Jersey Devil and a lot of the sightings people hear with screamings at night and all, that was probably Bigfoot, not the Jersey Devil.
Right.
I love that opinion anyway.
So after you basically shut down, what happened next?
After it screamed at me, I wanted to drop. I didn't drop to the ground. I wanted to. I wanted to. I don't know what I wanted to do. I just couldn't do anything. But when it turned and spun, it broke its spell or whatever the hell you want to call it. It made the first move, but it shot towards the wood line to its left, and it cleared the distance of about 75 feet in half a second. Like it moved like it was spiritually fast, like a ghost would move that quick, not a physical animal. Like deer. I mean, deer are quick, but they're not. They're not that quick. Nothing I've ever seen moves that quick or moved that quick. Ever.
And how far did you have to walk to your truck after this?
I ran from that spot and made it back to my truck. Like I told you, I was saying before, I guess you lost you then. as it tore into the woods, it sounded like a truck going through the woods. It was just smashing branches and ripping shit up. It was definitely a physical presence there. It wasn't a ghost or whatever you want to call it. It was physical. And like I said, it sounded just like a truck going through the woods, smashing all the vegetation. Now, as it's running, I'm running. It's paralleling me through the woods, ripping branches up. Like it could have easily came and got me. It did inch closer and closer to where I was at. And when I got to the point where I was close enough to I could see my car in front of me. It's probably about 100 feet in front of me, 75 feet. With the moonlight, I could see my car. It shut down. It stopped. Boom. That was it. And I thought for sure that's when I was going to jump out and get me.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that was the worst part. I can't say I think the scream was with it that shut me down was the worst part, but I was past that at that point. I was in the fight mode. I was in the flight mode. I was going. You know what I mean? I was going to my car and getting the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
And I did that. I got to the car, opened the car up, jumped in, screamed. So I was so fucking scared. And hauled ass. Boom, gone. And I didn't go in the woods again for about a year and a half. After that, maybe a year. I just I had no stomach to go into the woods. I was scared that every little thing I saw was going to be it trying to get me. Oh.
No, did you go to the same place again?
I've been there dozens and dozens of times since then. But I didn't go back to that spot to look for tracks or anything like that. It took me a long time to go back to that spot and get out of the car. I mean, it's one thing to drive back and look through your window and your windshield and all that and look at it, take it in, thinking something might be get you, maybe not. But it's another thing to get out of the vehicle and walk around and look for physical evidence and things like that. I don't do that. I don't, even to this day. I mean, I have gone out a few times and looked, and there's been a few times when I've been one of my hobbies is to hunt for Indian artifacts, hunt for arrowheads. So I'm always in the woods or fields or whatever. Never really seen any kind of. Twice now I've gotten interesting enough foot tracks to take pictures of them, but I've never casted anything or anything like that. So I will send you those pictures, by the way.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think some of those people are nuts that go and like look for them and they're by themselves and there's just no way out if they do have like an aggressive encounter. And I've heard of a few. I don't know if they're true or not, but I mean, you're at the mercy of this thing, and
absolutely. They're massive, man. It's not like it's a Doberman or a pit bull or something that you might win the fight in. At the end of the day, these things are huge animals, strong on top of strong. You have no idea the muscles that were on this thing. I don't. They're not us. They're similar to us, but they're not us. T-Mobile sucks, apparently, especially down here.
Yeah, it sucks around here too. I've been told not to get it. That's okay. I'll just cut all that stuff out. It'll not even sound like it happened. So
awesome.
So we were at the So you think this thing was probably just escorting you out of its hunting grounds? That's why I don't think it's spiritual, because if it's after deer and it needs to eat something, it's definitely not a phantom of some sort.
No, it's not. It's a physical creature. I don't know how I don't know how they go undetected. Maybe they have an ability that we don't have. They've probably been in the same body structure for millions and millions of years and have had longer time for the brains to evolve different adaptations to situations. That's what I believe personally. I don't know. Like I said, I've only seen the one. That was it. I had a vocalization encounter in 1991, summer of 91, with a buddy of mine. And the thing that I heard was not a human. It was definitely not. It sounded like it was speaking, like a record was being played backwards when it was speaking, with little pops and clicks, and then it would crunch. You could hear it getting closer and closer as it was stepping. It was bizarre. And it made all the hair stand on my body right back to that spot in '85. Exactly again. All the hair stood out of my biceps. Get the fuck out of here.
And where was this?
This took place in Hamilton, which is, as the crow flies from my sighting spot, maybe 15 miles, or something like that.
Huh. So
it's definitely possible it was the same thing. Maybe it was upset that maybe it knew it scared me by screaming at me.
Yeah.
And maybe it was coming to apologize, because there was nothing threatening about it. Honestly, there was nothing. It was a very lilting, soft, sing-songy kind of weird voice, man. And it moaned in between where it spoke. The deal was, this was another late 2 o'clock in the morning thing. My buddy and I had come down from up north and where I live now. At the time, I was living in Hamilton, married. But black jitterbug, topwater lure, and catch largemouth bass all summer long. That's what we did. He would come down a couple times a week because we had a little contest going. But we're at the one spot, and I said, well, I'm going to...
Now you're cutting out on me again.
To get back to where he was. So he's there. We found his car's there, and he's like, I can't find him anywhere. And he's like, I hear this real slow, this low, soft voice. Dude, get in the car. Get in the car now, he says. So what? He's like, get in the fucking car. I said, all right. I put my phone in the back seat, sat in this seat. I'm like, what's up? He's like, shh, listen to this thing, man. It's coming out of the swamp. It's coming at us. And there was a big cedar swamp right next to where we were fishing. With the stream that flowed into the farm pond that we fished in. They're all connected. And I hear this thing going crunch. You'd hear it step to it.
Oh, I've lost you again.
Well, it was hopping.
Oh, there you go.
But it did it 3 times in succession. By the third time, it was probably 50 feet into the wood line. The swamp was pretty thick. It was summertime. So when he put his headlights on, I looked, and I couldn't see anything. I didn't see any eye shine or anything like that. But then again, it was pretty harrowing. By that point, it was pretty frightening. And he hauled ass. We got the hell out of there.
Now, after your first encounter, did you tell anybody about that, or so your friend would have known?
No, he didn't know about the Bigfoot. That was something I kept to myself. I told my family and things like that, but I had never told anybody about it for years and years and years. You laughed at, and, you know.
Yeah, I know.
I told my mom, my grandmother, grandfather, I guess, at the time. But that was about it. My wife knew. I told her about it. So, but Mike, I don't think I ever told him about it. Not until afterwards, anyway. He calls it the Goonie Goo Goo. He still calls it that. But it's like we talked about it a couple of weeks back.
Huh.
Hey, down in Florida, you go to look for the skunk apes, the Goonie Goo Goos? I said, no, not this time.
So you don't hunt anymore at all? Not because of that, though. You just don't hunt?
Bigfoot encounters that I would say were definite. And there's been plenty of times when I felt watched in the woods. I'm a wholesale floral supplier by trade. I generally, there's times of the year, the spring and the summer, when I cut laurel and things like that. And there's some spots in the woods I go to cut laurel that are pretty remote. And you can definitely feel like you're being watched.